What is one small way that you have neglected yourself lately? Is it with your health? Is it your exercise? Is it your hobbies? Is it your connections? Is it your, that time that you need before bed to let your brain sort of decompress so that you can get good sleep? Whatever it is, how can you show gratitude to yourself in one of those areas that you've been neglecting? Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Holistic Productivity Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 35 of the Holistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris LeBrun. I'm your host. I'm a productivity coach, and I'm just so grateful that you are here for this episode. I am grateful that you are spending time with me, and most importantly, in spending time investing in your goals. We've got a great episode for today. This is our second episode in our series on gratitude this month. And if you haven't caught the first episode, that's okay. You'll still know what we're talking about today. But I would encourage you to go back and listen to or watch episode number 34. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform. You can find it on YouTube. But in that episode, we kind of lay the groundwork for what we're talking about here in National Gratitude Month, in the month of November. We talk about the importance of gratitude and some of the benefits you can get from it and how you can start a simple gratitude practice. And my guest for the episode is Dr. Will Johns, author of Everything is Better Than You Think. So I encourage you to go back and check that out. But today we're talking about self-care and how that's actually a form of gratitude. I've done an episode before on self-care and gratitude together. That was episode number 8. You can check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes for both episodes. But self-care is really a form of gratitude, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But I want to start off by talking about what self-care is not. Okay, let's get that out of the way. First of all, self-care is not just spa days, mani-pedis, or fancy wellness retreats. Now, it can be those things if that's what moves you, if that's what motivates you and refreshes you, but that's not for everyone. And this isn't just a male-female thing, right? Truth be told, I'm going to be the one in our family that would prefer to go and get a massage, not my wife. Okay? So this has nothing to do with, the male-female preferences. But that's a lot of times what we get stuck in our head when we think about self-care. And I just want to put that out. Another thing that self-care is not is expensive. It doesn't have to be a big expenditure of money to do something nice for yourself. Some of the best self-care practices that we're going to look at in this episode are absolutely free. They don't cost you a penny, and they can be just as effective as something that you're going to pay for. And self-care is definitely not selfish. If you think that self-care is selfish, remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself lets you give more generously to others. We often think of self-care as luxury, but really it's maintenance. Just like charging your phone before the battery dies, you have to take care of your own personal battery. You have to be recharged and refreshed and renewed. Finally, self-care is not an escape from responsibility. We can feel guilty sometimes for wanting to step back and take a moment for ourselves. And maybe we feel like we're shirking our duty or our responsibility. But self-care is gratitude for the gift of being alive and being able to contribute. And that is so critical when it comes to doing the things that you were put on this earth to do, to achieving your goals, whether they are in your professional, personal, or purpose-driven areas of life. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, we know what self-care is not. Let's look at how we can practice self-care as a form of gratitude. First thing we can do is by taking care of our body. And that starts with health and nutrition. Your body is the vehicle that carries your purpose, and how you fuel it matters. You can't achieve your goals if you're always run down and sick and tired. Gratitude for your body shows up in the choices that you make. And it's not about perfection. We're not talking about having the most fit body in the world, but we're talking about being intentional. And this is true for diet, exercise, sleep, all of it, right? You have to have intention and you have to show up. You don't have to be perfect, because little improvements can add up and make a big difference over time. One thing you can do is prepping a healthy meal each week, rather than going out and hitting the burger joint again, or the taco barn, or whatever it is, right? That's an act of gratitude. In several ways, it can be an act of gratitude for your wallet because it's probably cheaper. It can be an act of gratitude for your body because you're eating healthier. And I'll be honest, I love to cook, but I hate prepping food for lunch that I take to work. And so one of the things, honestly, that has been a huge benefit for me is taking those bagged salads, because I know I'm getting a lot of fiber, a lot of good vegetables and healthy nutrients and all of that stuff, but it's not anything that I have to prep. And so, find those practical ways that you can show self-care and gratitude toward yourself without putting a lot of extra stress on your time or schedule, right? So those are some things that you can do. Another way that you can show gratitude for yourself and your health is through sleep. Now, sleep is one of the most underrated forms of self-care. I used the example of your phone battery earlier. When my wife's phone battery gets down to 70, she's recharging that thing. You wouldn't expect to run your phone on 2% battery all day. But when we don't get our sleep, that's exactly what we're doing to ourselves. Now, we hear a lot about quantity, how everybody needs 8 hours. Well, the fact is that everybody is different in how much they need. Some need 8 hours. That for others, that may not be enough. For others, that may be too much. For my wife, she can definitely sleep. 8 hours for her is just scratching the surface. On the weekends, a lot of times she's sleeping a lot more than that. Me, I get 6.5, 7, and I'm wide awake. I can't sleep physically longer than that unless I've really been exerting myself or I've been traveling or something like that. So everybody is different. Regardless of how much quantity of sleep you need, we all need quality of sleep. That is just as important, if not more. To get that quality sleep, your mind needs to slow down before it can really rest. You can't expect to be going 100 miles an hour in your day right up to bedtime and then boop, fall asleep. Now, I can fall asleep pretty quickly, but my mind is still working. My body is at rest, but my mind is not. And so one of the things that you can really do to improve your sleep quality, I've talked about this before, is a bedtime routine. Now, experts are going to tell you 60 minutes of no screens before bed is ideal. But look, even if you have only 10 minutes of winding down before you start climbing in bed, that's going to change how rested you feel. One of the things that I like to do as part of my bedtime routine is have a cup of herbal tea. Right? There's a lot of other things that you can do to maximize that time without screens. You can journal, you can read, you can have that cup of tea. It's soothing and relaxing, and that contributes to that screen-free time right before bed. Definitely do not crawl into bed and get on your phone and start playing games or surfing the web or scrolling social media. That is going to kill your sleep quality. The next thing that we can do to say thank you to our body, to take care of ourselves and our body, is exercise. The next thing that we can do as self-care for our body is exercise. Now, a lot of times, people get worried that if they exercise, it's going to zap your energy. But the opposite is actually true. It's going to restore your energy. Just a couple of days ago, a friend of mine was in town, and he said, "Hey, come check out Burn Boot Camp with me." And so I did. We got there at 6:15 in the morning for boot camp. And look, I will admit, the first time in that type of a class, it kicked my butt. But here's the thing: I didn't feel tired the whole rest of the day. It actually refreshed me, got me charged up for the day, and kept me going. Now, it was exhausting in the moment, I'm not going to lie, but it was not something that zapped my energy for the rest of the day. One of the things that I love to do is taking a short walk in the afternoon. It's a huge boost for me. I get fresh air and exercise. I get the blood flowing. I'm able to think clearer out there, especially if I was trying to sit in my office and think about work. So just getting out and having that 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of walking. Sometimes I'll even bring coworkers out with me and we'll have a walking meeting. I did that earlier this week. Got a lot of great things talked through and planned, and we're killing multiple birds here with one stone. So I would definitely recommend working a short walk into your schedule sometime. And that's a great way to get exercise and just show appreciation for your body. Now, when we care for the body, the mind follows. But with gratitude, we also need to make sure that we are getting mental rest. And sometimes the most productive thing you can do is just to step away, take that mental break. I know it feels backwards, it feels wrong, it feels, again, like we talked at the beginning, like you're shirking your responsibility. But here's the thing: your mind actually needs white space because that's where the creativity lives. If your brain is always on, always going, there's no time for other ideas to creep in that provide creativity and balance. Another strategy you can use to give yourself a mental break is making sure that you are scheduling breaks between your meetings. Now, I've been in jobs where I was literally running from one meeting to the next for half of the day, 3/4 of the day. And I was just praying that there would be a bathroom break that I could squeeze in there somewhere, because, man, it was just back to back to back to back. Even a 15-minute pause between meetings can help you recharge and mentally prepare for the next meeting. So here's a tip. If you really want to maximize your productivity and your gratitude and your self-care all at once, here's what you can do. Schedule the meeting to start 15 minutes later than you normally would. Start it at 9:15 instead of 9 o'clock. Now you've got a shorter meeting window. You can probably still get things done in that time. It gives you a 15-minute break from your previous meeting. And to make it even more impactful, use that time to work on your gratitude. Think about all the things that you're grateful for. Make a list, write in your gratitude journal. So now we're just piling all of these things on top of each other, and you are utilizing that 15-minute break for so many different things. Self-care sometimes looks like disappointing someone else to protect your peace, and that's okay. And what I mean by that is a well-placed no thank you is an act of gratitude for you, for your time, and for your energy. Because here's the truth. I can't be a good partner, a good father, a good team member, owner, employee, you fill in the blank. But I can't be any good to any of those people that matter in my life if I'm run down, frazzled, frustrated, and not operating at full capacity. Remember, self-care isn't selfish, it's strategic. Now, another form of self-care is connection with others. Here's the thing. Gratitude grows in connection. When we are connected with each other, we become more grateful. There are the stories, the inside jokes, the shared memories. All of these things are things that you can be grateful for, and they also recharge you. They make you feel like yourself again. We all have this portable TV in our pocket, right? But did you know? Were you aware? You can actually use it to call somebody. And I know all the younger generation is saying, why would we call someone? Well, sometimes it's just nice to hear their voice. But if it's texting for you, go ahead and do that. But when you reach out to a friend, even if it's that quick text or short call, you remind both of you that you matter. Not long ago, we had the golf tournament for my nonprofit. And so I was running around interacting with all the teams for the day. What really stood out to me wasn't the competition between the teams, it was the connection within the teams. It was the laughter, the banter, the insults, right? I said to one foursome at one point during the day, I said, I can tell you guys are really good friends because of the jokes that are going back and forth, the friendly barbs, the insults, right? Maybe that's something that guys do more than girls. I don't know. But those moments, that time out on the golf course for them was a connection. It was refreshing them. They were getting the exercise. They were getting the fresh air. All of those things were coming together. Those are moments that we can be grateful for, and they act as self-care. So I've got a challenge for you. I want you to work on this coming week. Take 2 or 3 friends that you haven't been connected with them and reach out by text, by phone, whatever you do. Just reach out and connect with them, not for any specific reason. Maybe it's just to say how much you miss them, how much you're grateful for them. I found that I had some friends, and the only time I was reaching out, the only time they were reaching out was on our birthdays, right? We would text each other, hey, happy birthday, or something like that. And I've started saying I need to connect outside of that window. And I love this. I love just randomly texting somebody or calling them up and saying, hey, how's it going? How are things? I miss you. I value our friendship. That makes them feel better. It makes you feel better. There's just so much goodness that can happen. So test that out this week. See if it doesn't make a difference. Again, you can do more than 2 or 3, but at least do that. Because here's the thing, right? Connection, that connection is going to fill your emotional tank, but there's other things that we can do to refill our creative tank. That is some of the hobbies and the pastimes that we all enjoy. Remember, joy is like fuel. It re-energizes your sense of purpose, and anything that brings you joy is good for you. Here's the truth. Again, this goes back to that guilt thing that I've talked about several times, but your hobbies don't have to be productive for them to be valuable, right? If it brings you joy, it's going to be a valuable use of your time. Now, you can obviously take that to extremes and do nothing but hobbies, and that may be unproductive because you won't be you won't have a job anymore. You won't get anything else done. But within moderation, right? So embrace your hobbies, build time into your schedule for them, make them just as important within moderation as some of the other things that you have on your calendar. During the summer, our family, we have Monday movie night. My wife is a teacher, so she's off. It's not a school night for her. I have blocked that off in my calendar. That's sacred time when my wife and myself and our boys can get together and just watch a movie and spend time together. The conversations that happen, those are critical. And I love that. So that is scheduled on the calendar in the summer. One of my other big hobbies is Lego. And, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see part of my collection there behind me. And I know it sounds silly, but honestly, Lego is so much fun because it takes me back to when I was a kid. Not that I want to do my life over again, but it just reminds me of that time when I had simple joy. You know, there's wonder and magic as I build and I see these things from these little bricks come together to build these amazing things, right? Maybe even a little bit of mystery because I can't figure out how to do that without the instructions there, right? But I feel satisfaction when that build is complete and I get to enjoy them every time as I walk past them, as I see them sitting there on the shelf. Unless, of course, I'm dusting. That's not joyful. But, there's so much time that I just love seeing those. And that is something that brings joy and provides just that self care that I need. Now, here's a question to reflect on as we close. What is one small way that you have neglected yourself lately? Is it with your health? Is it your exercise? Is it your hobbies? Is it your connections? Is it that time that you need before bed to let your brain sort of decompress so that you can get good sleep? Whatever it is, how can you show gratitude to yourself in one of those areas that you've been neglecting, right? That's the other thing that I want you to think about and put a plan into place. It may not be as easy as texting somebody, but really take one of those areas that you're neglecting and build a plan around how you can implement self-care and gratitude in that area of your life. So let's recap what we've talked about today. Gratitude isn't just what we say. It's not just the words thank you coming out of our mouth. It's really how we care for the life that we've been given. Self-care is gratitude in action. It's how you say thank you to your body, your mind, and to your life. We established that self-care is not a luxury, it's a responsibility. Because when you take care of yourself, you show up better for everything and everyone that matters all around you. Health, exercise, sleep, mental acuity, connection, joy. These are all elements of self-care and they should not be overlooked. If you want more energy to do the things in life that matter to you, to go out there and achieve your goals, if you want more happiness, more satisfaction, it all starts with self-care and gratitude for you. So make sure that you are doing that you are prioritizing that in your life. Make it part of your regular routine so that you can show gratitude to yourself. That's it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have learned something. I hope that maybe you're thinking about this whole self-care thing a little bit differently. Check out the show notes. I will have links in there for some of the other podcast episodes that I mentioned, for some other tips and tricks that you might find useful. So the show notes will be at holisticproductivity.com/35. Make sure that you are subscribed on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. That way you'll get notified when the next episode drops. Make sure, you click that bell or subscribe or whatever that looks like. We're going to continue this conversation on gratitude next week, and I know that you will not want to miss that episode. So make sure you are subscribed. And, show your gratitude for this show. If you've gotten something out of any of these episodes, I'd love for you to rate this show, for you to provide some feedback on your favorite podcast platform. So I would be grateful if you can do that for people who are looking at this show and let them know that this is valuable and meaningful for you. Be sure to follow at Wholistic Productivity on all of the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack, Threads. You can find great productivity tips and motivation throughout the week between episodes. And I've been talking about this, but really excited about our Holistic Productivity community on the School platform. If you don't know what School is, go check it out. It's absolutely free. It's a community of people literally from around the world. We got people in Australia and Europe and just everywhere. It is so fantastic what is happening in that community. Lots of great resources and more to come. So check that out. A link will be in the show notes as well. Again, thank you so much for listening in, for being part of this conversation. I'm just so grateful that you are here, because my goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.